Of the late, great Marvin Gaye, what's going on? I am Tammy Wright, co founder of the Hidden Voices podcast, and I just got to ask myself, what is going on? You know, first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to thank you for joining us each Monday at 7 p.m. to discuss many of the things that affect our lives, our communities, and to educate one another and to educate and to push for the education of our children. So I'd like to first thank you. Thank you very much. And like everybody else, we'll be taking off for the holidays. So our next podcast is Monday, January the 6th at 7 p.m. We hope to see you there. So let me get down to it. What is really going on? The black community is only about 12% of the country. And I think our numbers are somewhere around 25 million across the country. In Texas, our 12%, it looks like this. It looks something like this. Like 12% would be like 3,500,000. So compared to the white community, which is well in the 20 millions, and then we have the Hispanic community, which takes up about 19% of the population in Texas. So what's going on? What's going on with our kids? We know that there are what's going on with our families, what's going on in our community. We know that we have very high numbers of incarceration. So if you take that 12% and knock off a percentage of them, percentage of our black men and women that are in prison, and then you think about that leaving our kids and the type of education that they're going to receive. One of the things that's going on, and we need to know the political climate. The federal government and the federal government and the state are different. They have different roles, different things that they are responsible for. And one of the push of the Trump one of his agenda items is to disband the Board of Education. And the Board of Education provides oversight for some of the rights of kids with special needs, underserved communities, things like that. Well, that's going to come back into the states. And if that comes back in the states kind of policing themselves. And every state is different. It almost feels like separate but unequal again. And it feels like a rollback. And that's not to say that in every instance this would be a bad thing. But that depends upon what location, where are you, what's the political environment like. We know that black kids, and we've said this many times, black and Hispanic kids are behind on the reading and the math. Our kids are not being taught financial literacy. There's always a big push to build our own schools to teach our kids ourselves. But logistically, that's not something that's going to happen overnight. So what do we do now? I've heard things like, should we care about books being banned when we really ought to be caring about our own schools? Well, there's some truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that. However, what are we going to do now? And it is imperative that we begin to pay attention to the bills and laws that are being passed every day in our state legislative sessions. These are the things that affect us immediately. These are the things that affect us completely. Governor Abbott has to have a House and a Senate that is going to approve or pass his agenda. And for your agenda to get passed, you have to have people in place that are like-minded. This goes for this federal government. This goes for the state government. If The people in the Senate and the people in the House are not locked in step with everything that the governor wants, then some things just won't get passed. It's that simple. But if they are locked in step, then a lot of stuff will get passed, and you, you'll get pushback. But then it boils down to the numbers. What is the vote? And then that, whatever it is passed. So when we're voting, when we are doing these things, we need to be educated on what individual agendas are and how they affect us every day. And so just I'll give you some examples. House Bill 1605 just passed in the legislative this past legislative session in November 2024. Now, it was even preempted. What it is Texas will create its own curriculum, and then that curriculum will be taught to our kids. We say, well, okay, we're going to create our own curriculum. But is it a curriculum of things that need to be taught to our kids? Is it some watered down version of something? I've actually gotten a hold to the textbook that they're going to use, and you can get a hold of it also because it is public. They're saying that's part of transparency, but I don't know how many of us will actually go out and look at it. I'm going to read things out of it in another clip. But just to give you an idea of something that's in the bills, a couple of things that's in it, but centering around reading and language arts, let's say Black history or talking about our history and our contribution. One of the sections is beyond, well, this is all that they have. It's not one of the sections. This is it. Beyond Juneteenth, 1865 to 1965. Well, we did a lot of contributions before 1865 and a lot after 1965. So you'd be amazed. It also has like a lot of biblical content. Now, if we really know our history, and when we came over here and we were taught the Bible, remember, the plantation owners selected what portion of the Bible we were to learn, what sections of the Bible we were to learn. There were sections of the Bible that we were not ever supposed to see, and made sure that we couldn't read, so we couldn't go out and access that portion of the Bible. So there's many biblical references, and the other thing with that is it doesn't necessarily take in consideration that everybody is not of the same faith. So I'm going to actually read some of that in another clip. I'm going to actually read and delve into that. Some good things that happened was there was a bill that got passed that said you can no longer discipline a person because of their hair texture, or you can't put kids in handcuffs anymore. And those are two really good things that did pass. Then there were some things about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which passed. And if a school tries to teach something like then it starts at 1865. I don't know how much critical race you can talk about if you're going to start African American Black people time in the country at 1865. But if they did teach it, they could lose funding, things like that. Now think about that. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Well, that could include veterans, people with disability. It's not just race. So if this bill is already passed that says that if you try to do anything around diversity, equity, and inclusion, that you would lose funding. Now, diversity, equity, and inclusion is nothing more than taking into consideration that a person is a veteran. That's taking into consideration that a person might have came from an underserved community, taking into consideration, not the only thing, but just one consideration, that the person may have learning disability, or the person may be special needs. This, and then if the schools attempt to do that, and particularly junior colleges, public colleges, they can lose funding. So, all these things have an impact on us. There are a lot of vets here in the United States, and there are a lot of vets in Texas. And if those considerations, because of diversity, see, diversity, we want to think in terms of black, but diversity is diversity. People that are deaf, people that are, like I said, veterans, special needs, disabled. All these things are part of diversity, equity, fairness with fairness, so that regardless, you have the same opportunity to be included. So if you break it down, it'll make sense. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's just saying we have people with vast needs. We need to consider those. Well, we can no longer consider those. And that would include a lot of people, not just black people, not just Hispanic people, not just women. There's all kind of diversity in this country. People that come from everywhere, all walks of life, all kinds of disabilities, nuances that was once considered, that is no longer considered. And how does that affect the number of people that will go to college and go to our junior colleges and our public universities and colleges? So those are the things that we need to pay attention to. We need to understand that it is important. Texas has taken more books out of the library, and there are several libraries. I was thinking of one, I'm trying to think of which one it was, that they've actually gotten rid of the library and changed it into a disciplinary, a place where they, when kids act up, where you can take them. It's a disciplinary area. And so, and so we have to think about our teachers, and we have to think about our kids. And I do realize that, maybe, for a lot of kids, maybe being able to go to schools with people that look like us, that have some teachers in the school that look like us, and that have that diversity that represents what's really in the community, is the best place. And the black community we often talk about building and creating our own schools. But I'm a realist, and I just know that today we don't have enough of them. And so we have to figure out what to do, how to bridge the gap while maybe more schools pop up or whatever. But we have to bridge some kind of gap, because what our kids are learning, or what our kids are not learning, more importantly, is very important. So there's so I just make sure that I've talked about a couple of things. I make sure that I covered what I wanted to cover, because I want to know what's going on. Like, this is a major effort to water down education, to get rid of books, to take one thing about House Bill 1605 is the teachers no longer can create a lesson plan. They don't have a time allotted, and the bill says, well, this is to free them up to do more teaching, and teaching from Bluebonnet. Bluebonnet is the curriculum, and it's really kind of scripted. They read what's in there. They might have flashcards and things like that, but they don't deviate. And so teachers' nuances and the special gifts and talents that they have, I don't understand how that fits in when someone is scripting what you're going to teach kids, and limiting scripting limitations on the vast information that's out there. So, and here's another thing: the schools in 1605, it is not mandatory. Schools can opt in or opt out of the Bluebonnet curriculum, but if they opt out, they will lose additional funding. So right now we're looking at about $40 for each kid. By then there's going to be an additional $60 if you in fact use the Bluebonnet curriculum. If you don't use the Bluebonnet curriculum, you're going to be looking at $40. And I personally think that's just the first step. At some point, it's going to be mandatory. Right now, I do know some school districts that's using it. I went on my grandkids' school district, and this is really for pre-K through 5th grade. This watered down version of with the Bluebonnet curriculum. Now, there's more for kids of 7th and 8th grade, 9th through 12th, but this Bluebonnet and the way that they're going to teach, and instead of teaching language arts, they're going to teach some sort of history and it's supposed to improve your writing. Plano School, Plano ISD, Richardson ISD, Louisville ISD, Carrollton ISD, McKinney ISD, all of them are currently using the Bluebonnet curriculum. Remember, one of the big things is beyond Juneteenth, 1865 to 1965, Dallas is currently not using it. However, with the incentive, they may switch over. So will Rockwall and Garland. They anticipate having to switch over just because they need the money to get through to just operate the school. The other one last thing is currently, as of January 21st of this year, Linda McCone will be the Secretary of Education. Linda McCone, her resume looks like this. She has a bachelor's degree in French, bachelor's of arts in French, and she also is the owner and co-founder of the World Wrestling Entertainment. Now, World Wrestling, she does not have any education experience at all. You can look that up. Her name is Linda McCone, McMahone, and or you can just look up Secretary of Education for the state. She does have some experience with small business, but she may not need to have that much experience in education, because the agenda does include putting all the education pieces back in the state. And I suspect that she'll probably, from a businesswoman perspective, she will probably be facilitating where funds are going and helping to disband education as we know it today. So I guess that's all I have about the Senate bills and the House bills in the state. All of the bills that I spoke of is in the state. Remember, the federal education is just mainly the grants. They facilitate the grants that that are distributed to kids. They also provide oversight to make sure that around discrimination, women or anybody being sexually abused on college campuses, and they monitor and they collect data. That's what the federal government does. The state is really where the meat and potatoes is where the information that's fed to our kids, it comes from the state, not from the federal government. The teachers that's selected, the way the schools are operated, the way money is distributed within the state, it all comes from the state government. So when we are voting for a governor, we need to think about that the governor is going to select the person that's going to be over the education of our kids. And what is that governor's philosophy when it comes to education? I want you to have a nice evening and enjoy the holidays, and we will see you on January 6th.